Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host and most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
Everything's out of control, but we're going to put it in control very quickly like we did on the southern border. I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor. And worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States. I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening. They've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
Oh, damn. Well, today's date, August 13th, 2025, and this is How the Frack Got Here. I'm your host and most Will Buchanan. How the Frack Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know, we do pride ourselves on being a news podcast. We only cite from sources with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, The Daily Beast, where every extreme left or extreme right you get your views from. We simply don't do that. At the same time, we do try our very best to maintain our professionalism, but words fly. At the same time, guys, maybe things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, yeah, shit. I know we made it 3 minutes in and already profanities. Apologies, but yes, Taco has decided to invade DC. Why has he decided to invade DC? Because DC apparently he believes in his mind DC is crime-filled, bedridden, bedlam, a cornucopia of destruction, a literal wasteland, if you will. At least that's what you think. But in hindsight, this is exactly what he said.
President Trump taking the dramatic step after a former member of DOJ was violently assaulted on Washington's streets last week, painting a dire picture of crime and homelessness in the Capitol.
Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people.
But D.C. police statistics show violent crime has fallen the last 2 years, including by 26% so far in 2025. And the U.S. Attorney's Office said in January, overall crime in D.C. was at a 30-year low. The head of D.C.'s police union says those statistics fail to capture the reality on the ground.
That's not the reality that we feel on the streets.
He says D.C.'s officers welcome short-term federal help, but need more officers and changes in local laws to make a difference.
Can you fundamentally fix the crime problem in D.C. in a month?
No, I don't think so. I think you certainly can make an impact on the crime that would normally occur.
Now, President Trump also said yesterday he may deploy the National Guard in other cities too, but D.C.'s unique status as not part of any state gives him authorities here he wouldn't necessarily have elsewhere, at least not without a robust legal challenge if a governor opposed that action. Craig?
All right. And we'll get to that momentarily. But at the same time, folks, again, all I can think of is Taco is sitting in the White House watching Fox News. Because where else would he get the idea that DC is a crime-filled, gang-ridden wasteland? Because Fox News says so. But, it's not the fact that it's a wasteland. It's the fact that a white person was attacked. And you know what? I'm going to be honest about this. I'm not trying to paint this picture, but maybe that's what we need to get actions across. Now think about it. Whenever a white person is attacked, laws get written, interactions get passed. I mean, Laken Riley, a woman who was SA'd, and next thing you know, there's an act named after her. Or in the event that a white woman basically lied about her being assaulted, and it led to the destruction of an all-black town multiple times. I'm just saying, whenever it comes to white people, it's the only time I actually ever see action. But yes, instead of a white person getting attacked, that's all it was. At the same time, like they were saying, it makes no sense. None at all to literally and figuratively bring up the fact that, oh, well, DC's crime ridden. There's thugs roaming around because they can't say what they really want to say. At the same time, the homelessness, which was new for Taco to say, but he brought that up as well.
We're going to be removing homeless encampments from all over our parks, our beautiful, beautiful parks, which now a lot of people can't walk on. They've been very dirty, got a lot of problems. But we've already started that. We're moving the encampments away, trying to take care of people. Some of those people, we don't know how they even got there. Some of those people are from different countries, different parts of the world. Nobody knows who they are. They have no idea, but they're there. Getting rid of the people from underpasses and public spaces from all over the city. There are many places that they can go, and we're going to help them as much as you can help. But they'll not be allowed to turn our capital into a wasteland for the world to see.
There's that word again. It's like, I love how they said, well, we don't know where all these people showed up. I don't know, maybe because finding an apartment, or the price of apartments, the price of housing, the price of actually getting a house, the difficulties in actually getting a home are higher than ever, and that banks and mutual hedge fund companies are having a field day buying up and selling properties, dismantling large acre properties and building apartments with New York rent that nobody can afford? Maybe. At the same time, we don't know where all these people showed up. It's almost as if accountability is like another ex-wife he would like to avoid. Because that's what Taco's doing. He wants to sit there and say, oh, my Doge staffer, codenamed Big Balls, was attacked, and now we must invade. And not only we must invade because of that, we must take down the homelessness. We must take down the thugs. We must take down all of this because it is a wasteland. Very rarely in history has the president ever stepped in to a major U.S. city and said, we need to take over it. We need to do a federal takeover. You'd be very hard pressed in history to find not too few of those. And again, it's all from one incident because, as they said, the crime rate in DC is at nearly an all-time low. Homelessness up in combat by the fact of inflation and prices and everything going up but your paycheck. It is literally all connected if you follow the money. And at the same time, Taco wants to sit there and, be so disconnected from reality, but swear up and down his fingers on the pulse. But he wants to call thugs and things of that nature. But let's hear it from the mayor, who I still have a bone to pick with her because of her, the Black Lives Matter murals, as far as the roads were done, were undone under her watch. But again, let's hear what she has to say.
We don't have senators or full autonomy. Limited home rule gives the federal government the ability to intrude on our autonomy in many ways. I've said before, and I'll repeat, that I believe that the president's view of DC is shaped by his COVID era experience during his first term. And it is true that those were more challenging times related to some issues. It is also true that we experienced a crime spike post-COVID. But we worked quickly to put laws in place and tactics that got violent offenders off our streets and gave our police officers more tools, which is why we have seen a huge decrease in crime because of those efforts. We have been able to reverse that 2023 crime spike. This year, crime isn't just down from 2023, it's also down from 2019, before the pandemic, and we're at a 30-year violent crime low. We're not satisfied. We haven't taken our foot off the gas, and we continue to look for ways to make our city safer. We know, however, as most have heard from the president's press conference, that he has prerogatives in D.C. unlike anywhere else in the country, including his authority given by our home rule charter to require the mayor, to require me to supply services of the Metropolitan Police Department. And he also has control and the ability to deploy the National Guard. But let me be clear, as our home rule charter is also clear, and the president's executive order restates. Chief Pamela Smith is the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, and its 3,100 members work under her direction. The Home Rule Charter requires the mayor to provide the services of MPD during special conditions of an emergency, and we will follow the law. Though there's a question about the subjectivity of that declaration. In fact, the chief has already provided a high-level liaison and point of contact with the federal government and made those initial contacts. The executive order is also clear that the president has delegated his authority to make requests of us to Attorney General Pam Bondi. I have reached out to Attorney General Bondi and hope to schedule a meeting soon. My message to residents is this. We know that access to our democracy is tenuous. That is why you have heard me and many Washingtonians before me advocate for full statehood for the District of Columbia. We are American citizens. Our families go to war. We pay taxes and we uphold the responsibilities of citizenship. And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised. I can say to DC residents that we will continue to operate our government in a way that makes you proud. We will balance our budgets. We will deploy our services. Our kids are going to start school on August 25th. And we will work with the federal government to do the things that they should do for our city, including making sure that we have the judges that we need, including making sure that all federal parks are supported, not just with law enforcement, but with other clean and safe activities, and including making sure that our economy is supported by rational federal actions as it relates to the federal workforce, federal workers, and federal property.
So, long story short, because she is very long-winded, didn't say what I hoped she would say. It was more like, well, we have very little autonomy, which she's right. District of Columbia doesn't operate the same way as most of the states do. They don't have senators. They don't have really a lot that the other states have. And yes, they do have to abide by certain. Regulations and laws that other states do not. That being said, I'm not gonna lie, I wanted a little bit more fight. Yes, Section 740 of DC's Home Rule Act does allow, under circumstances, a federal takeover of the city's police force. Ma'am, you are the mayor. It is completely and utterly okay to sit there and say you do not agree with this. It is completely and utterly okay to sit there and say that this takeover is nothing more than overreach of a man who has nothing better to do than sit there and watch Fox News and eat McDonald's all freaking day. It is completely and utterly okay to be in a disagreement with your police chief who believes that, oh no, we actually could use this police help. And you can sit there and say, I may not disagree with him, but numbers don't lie. I do not understand the level of, oh, we're still going to operate. Of course, you're still going to operate as normal. But the problem is now, not only do you have a police force who a certain commander believes this is going to be welcomed, at the same time, you will have National Guardsmen now enforcing the laws. And don't think, and please and believe, don't think for 1 second that immigration, ICE and ICE Barbie, Director of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, is not going to try to sit there and sneak a few of her people in to do routine checks. Oh, and if you think it's stopping with illegal immigrants, Chocolate City has quite the number of diverse people. If you think for 1 second that they're just going to be targeting illegal immigrants, you are delusional. Because now, Black people, I'm going to go ahead and say it, Black people are going to be harassed. Why? Because now you have an influx of National Guardsmen, along with federal officers, along with DC police, a mayor who, for all intents and purposes, doesn't look like the fight has been knocked out of her. But at the same time, what's the point? Because I'm going to tell you what's the point of all this. But first, let's also talk about the fact of what Taco said. And I want to point this out because, again, this leads to a bigger thing. And this is the reason why I keep saying pedos are trying to rewrite the books. And I apologize for saying pedos because I want to say the whole thing, but you'll get where I'm going at. But here's the thing I do want to point out. That Taco not only basically wants to take over DC, he wants to change the laws to allow teenagers 14 and older to be prosecuted as adults and face prison sentences. He wants to put 14-year-olds in prison as adults. He says on True Social, the law in DC must be changed to prosecute those minors as adults and lock them up for a long time, starting at age 14. The most recent victim, again, Big Balls that we talked about, was beaten mercilessly by local thugs. Here's the thing that people need to understand here, and I say this ever so nonchalantly. Why do we need to lower the age of, why do we need to lower it? Because here's the thing. To try minors as adults at 14 years old is not enforcing the law, not properly. If anything, you are opening the door for pedophiles. What I mean by that is, folks, it's a double-edged sword. That if 14-year-olds can be tried as adults, or the laws be changed to where they can be prosecuted as adults, or seen as adults in the eyes of the law, I fear for women. I fear for young girls. I fear for women. I fear for young girls. Because here's the point I'm getting at here, folks. The point I'm getting at here is that if this is allowed to happen, the double-edged sword is they could turn around, pedos could turn around and sit there and say, oh, well, 14 years old, they're seen as adults. Really? Don't think, and I say this all the freaking time, do not think for 1 second that won't come up, because it already has in Utah, and a senator in Utah is under fire for it. Not because of the fact that he thought this law was a good idea, was the fact that his relative got caught with his hands in a cookie jar that was way too freaking young, and now he actually may avoid jail and a sex offender registry.
Okay, Alana, thank you very much. The big political story today, Utah Democrats are calling on Senate President Stuart Adams to step down. It comes after a Salt Lake Tribune report that uncovered Adams had an undisclosed personal connection to a law that was changed in 2024. Jordan Tracy's been following the story for us today. He joins us live from the state capitol. Jordan, tell us all about this. It's making waves in Utah politics right now.
Yeah, that's right, Brian. So this all stems from an article written by Robert Gerke of the Salt Lake Tribune that outlines that Senate President Stuart Adams had a personal connection with an 18-year-old who was being charged for having sex with a 13-year-old. Now, the report says that Senate President Adams only confided in Senator Kirk Cullimore about this, who ran Senate Bill 213 to change this law, and Democrats are saying it's an abuse of power.
Democratic State Senator Nate Bluin is calling for Senate President Stuart Adams to resign. Citing the report from the Salt Lake Tribune, he believes Adams used his power to get this law changed.
The law was changed based off of conversations that happened behind closed doors that we certainly weren't a party to, that we didn't have an understanding of, that we didn't know about when we were taking a vote on this issue. And so we shouldn't be changing the law in regards to specific individual cases. It should be based off of what is best for the entire state.
Since Bluin's call, Utah Democratic Party Chair Brian King has joined the call for Adams to step down. Senate Bill 213 changed the criminal code so that an 18-year-old who is actively enrolled in high school would be charged as a juvenile for having sex with a 13-year-old and face a third-degree felony. It passed with broad support, including a yay vote from Representative King. Bluin voted against it in the Senate. But Bluin says his overall issue with this situation isn't the bill on its merits. It's that Adams didn't disclose his connection to reportedly anyone other than Senator Kirk Cullimore.
I think some transparency as this was going forward would have been helpful in really counteracting what we're here talking about today. If there had been an acknowledgement in the moment that this was a personal issue for someone, I think that would have probably been a whole different conversation.
In the Tribune report, Adams says he didn't push for the law change and it did not impact the case he was connected to. He released a statement Friday saying, in part, Senator Nate Bluin's recent attacks exemplify misleading political grandstanding fueled by misinformation and deliberate distortions. He continued that contrary to fabricated and baseless claims, the law is not retroactive, does not alter the legal age of consent, and does not apply to incidents of rape, aggravated sexual assault, or offenses involving force, coercion, or threats.
Now, Brian, you can see the full statement from Senate President Adams on our website, abc4.com. We also reached out to Senator Cullimore tonight and had not gotten a response by the time of the broadcast tonight. Now, what does Senator Bluin want to see here? Well, he wants to see an investigation of an ethics complaint, possibly, or even, as he called for Senate President Adams to step down. But there was no indication tonight that any of that will be moving forward. Reporting live,
And I'm just pointing that out. This is the thing I'm getting at, folks. I'm getting at this to where what's scary, that was Utah. Now, Utah is Mormon country. Everybody's like, well, it's Mormons. Yeah, I know. Mormons didn't believe black people didn't exist until the year 2000 or plus. But anyway, the point I'm getting at is that they tried to pass this law. And I just want to point this out for a second. I want to point this out. In a law, the final passage of this law, 67 yeas, 4 nays, and then foreclosed. Now, I can go down the line of everybody there that literally should be put on the list, but the point I'm getting at here is that we've seen what Taco is trying to do. This is just a tidbit of what could happen if they decide to turn around and start treating 14-year-olds like adults or lower. And like I said, not the fact that they want to lock up black men, because that's always been their plan. And it's always been the correctional pipeline's plan. because this is $1 billion business. CCA is here in Nashville. I can tell you off the bat, the correctional industry is a $1 billion business that loves to tax the state for how many people it holds in its prisons. You don't think for 1 second that the CCA or the correctional industry is not looking at this and going, payday. Or the fact you have pedos out there looking at this and going, are we validating the fact that we actually might get what we want with 13 and 14 and dare I say younger? Because that's what Taco and his Republican people want to. They want to open that door. And I'm not saying, well, there's probably pedos on the Democratic side too. It's the fact that some people do say that makes me cringe. At the same time, needs to be put on a list. Because there's something that should be done with pedos, and I can't say it on this podcast, but let's just say it travels a whole lot faster and it has multiple friends. I'll leave that interpretation however you will. But the other reason why I said I was coming back to this, and I said DC is not the only state, because this whole thing with DC is an experiment. They what Taco and his administration are trying to see is what they can get away with, because he doesn't like the fact that everybody doesn't see him as the dictator romantic he chooses him. He makes himself to be. The fact that you have Democratic governors, senators, and representatives all fighting him at different levels, he's trying to figure out a way, how can he use his position and his influence and his loyalists to take over? DC is just an experiment. At the same time, he's trying to see if he can actually establish his own militia to take over states. Enter the Maryland governor, who is already in front of us and saying, hell no.
But thank you so much for being here with me tonight.
It's such a joy to be with you. Thanks, Jen.
Well, let me just start. I mean, today I tried to give an overview of what we're looking at in the nation's capital, how it could impact other cities. Today, the Washington Post reported that the Trump administration is considering creating what they are calling a reaction force, it's quite a name, of hundreds of National Guard troops that they could deploy into any American city within hours. I think people are familiar with your bio, but just to remind people, you're a veteran of the Army and the Army Reserve. You're also Commander-in-Chief of the state's National Guard, of course, as governor. What do you make of the National Guard being deployed, not just to Washington, D.C., but potentially to other American cities like this?
Yeah, I'm proud to be the 63rd governor of the state of Maryland, but I'm humbled to be the commander-in-chief of the Maryland National Guard. And it's something that I do take very seriously as someone who has led soldiers in combat. I understand the gravity of what it means when you're asking these men and women to put themselves in harm's way, when you're asking their families to trust the decisions that are being made by those in charge, that the mission is both going to be mission critical and also mission aligned. And so I want to be very crystal clear to anyone who is listening. I will not authorize the usage of the Maryland National Guard for any mission that I do not deem to be mission critical or mission aligned. If there wants to be a real conversation about how to have public safety inside of our cities, just take a look at what we've been doing here in the state of Maryland over the past 2.5 years. Because the year before I became the governor, that Baltimore City averaged almost a homicide a day. Now, in 2.5 years, the last time the violent crime rate was this low in Baltimore City, I was not born yet. So if there wants to be a serious conversation about the work that we did collectively together with the mayor, with our county executives, with local law enforcement, with the U.S. attorney and the state's attorney, to be able to, with our community groups, to be able to drive down violent crime, then we should have that conversation. But let me not bury the lead. We were able to do that without having to deploy the National Guard in order to make that happen.
I want to ask you about that because there are some actual things that can be done. I mentioned a number of the programs that have been cut federally, not that any one is a silver bullet. A lot of this is controlled by local leaders. But you say you wouldn't allow it or you wouldn't authorize it. If he singled out Baltimore, he singled out Baltimore yesterday by name. So who knows? If he tried to send the National Guard to Baltimore, how do you stop it? I mean, we've seen this happen in LA. How do you stop it?
Well, the president has made an effort to single me out and single Baltimore out on multiple occasions. And I am very clear that I will work with anyone, but I will bow down to no one. And I understand where my constitutional authority begins, and I understand where my constitutional authority allows me to do. And as the commander-in-chief of the Maryland National Guard, I have the sole responsibility and the sole honor of being able to determine how, when, and why the Maryland National Guard is utilized. And it's something that I've done since I've been the governor. When we have had natural disasters, when we've watched historic floods in Western Maryland, where we had our National Guard on standby, when we've had members of the Maryland National Guard who are currently deployed overseas, I understand the gravity of the decision that goes into when, where, and how you utilize members of the National Guard. And so if I receive a request or instructions to be able to utilize the brave men and women, the citizen soldiers of our state, the ones who are raising their hands to take on this additional job of being able to support our state in our time of need, if it is not mission critical, if it is not mission aligned, I will not authorize it, and it will not happen.
Trump also name-checked. He name-checked Baltimore. He name-checked a number of other cities: Chicago, Oakland, Los Angeles, New York City. I just mentioned this. I mean, one of the things, there are a lot those cities have in common. They're led by Democratic mayors. They also have black mayors. I called this out, but what do you make of that?
I think there's another thing that that goes in common, is that these are places that the president has not spent time walking the streets.
That's
like
true.
I have. The president has not walked the streets of Baltimore like I have, like I do on a regular basis. The president does not know Baltimoreans like I do. The president does not know the progress that we have made in Baltimore City like I do. He just continues to use it as a trope. He continues to use it as a baiting technique, and he continues to use it as a distraction technique. So instead of talking about the historic progress that we have made in Baltimore to reduce violent crime, instead of talking about the work we're doing right now to make sure that every family has the right to feel safe in their communities and in their own neighborhoods, what he's doing is he's distracting us from talking about the real policies that are having real impacts on the people of Baltimore. Policies like pulling people off of healthcare, policies like making sure that our children are not getting the supports and the food assistance that they need. Policies like making sure that you are making historic firings of federal workers, many of whom are Baltimoreans, and now working to try to drive the unemployment rate up. So we are not going to allow these chicken hawks to be able to make policies that continue to try to use our military, the people who are wearing the same uniform that I was very proud to wear, using them as pawns, as distractions for the fact that the policy positions that he's putting in place are not working and are actually hurting real people.
I agree with you. It's a distraction. It's more than that, which I think you would agree.
So I got to leave it right there because, like I said, it goes more into this. But again, that's just one governor of Maryland, and he's saying what I hoped he would say. Literally, Maryland Governor Wes Moore. All I needed him to say, hell no, I will not authorize it. I will fight this man at every turn. Now, I admit, again, DC, they're limited in what they can do. But you are not limited in fighting back. You are not. But there is also one thing to consider as well, and I hate to point this out, but the reason why Taco is able to get away with this, and I hate to say it, but there is an overwhelming support of napkins that would welcome the police force. And that's the thing about it. You have those out there of the napkin variety that would welcome an overwhelming show of police force. That'll keep the thugs in check. That'll straighten them out. That'll do this because they'll welcome it. They see overwhelming police numbers as safety, when really they don't. Really, their safety is our oppression, is what it is, and that's why for a lot of what's happening in DC, it's allowed. More than likely, it's actually welcomed by those same folks. But again, it's not DC is an experiment. They're trying to see what other states and cities they can get away with. And don't think for 1 second he won't try California. Taco hates Governor Newsom out there. Gavin Newsom. He hates Gavin Newsom out there. He hates Gavin. He hates that man with a passion. Do not think for 1 second he will not try to take California. Do not think for 1 second he won't take a shot at Los Angeles, Sacramento, San Francisco. He will look at a foothold in California and say, or come up with some BS excuse, some BS excuse to where he believes that he needs to take over. But again, with Gavin out there in California, Mr. Moore in Maryland, again, it helps when you actually show fighting versus just spitting policy to save your job. That's what we don't need. But again, we'll follow the story as it continues. But I will say this before we get on to the next bit of what Taco's getting into. National Guard officers, you guys do realize that you do not, above all else, don't have to follow these orders. Yes, you are sworn to defend and uphold the Constitution, but you are also sworn to defend the people. And you can willfully disobey orders that contradict the Constitution. Yes, the president is the commander-in-chief. He is not a king. He is not a dictator. Sometimes you have to get in good trouble and disobey orders because, honestly, it is not worth being the forefront, being the quote-unquote proverbial wall that the shit hits on because a person told you to stand there. I'm just saying. But move right along, guys, because again, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, we did cover this last week, did say that because of their $1.1 billion funding that they will be winding down operations, which again makes me sad. There are multiple shows that have come from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. NPR also comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. It has served millions, if not billions of Americans. Vast generations can remember different shows that they used to watch that come from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. But again, it is sad because Taco won the ballroom. And instead of kids getting, free lunch like they should, because, kids need to eat, instead of us getting the educational programming, because Taco saw PBS as indoctrination, let me explain what real indoctrination is. And the reason why I say that, guys, is because not too long ago, Taco and his administration had partnered with PragerU. And they're sitting there saying, and this is one of the things, the White House had, this is being posted on Twitter, the White House's preferred alternative to PBS, PragerU, a non-profit organization that specializes in creating right-learning educational short videos for adults and children. It may already be in countless classrooms. I can tell you from the bat, it's already in private religious schools' classrooms. Yes, understand what I just said. Private religious schools, classrooms. PragerU is already there. At the same time, right-leaning, I love how they don't say right-wing, right-leaning educational short videos for adults and children that Taco wants to push forward as his alternative to PBS. And for all those that don't know PragerU, we covered this a couple of years ago. Let me explain this in two videos. This one video from PragerU, bear with me, it's 5 minutes, explains a history of slavery from white people's favorite black person that's about to be as close to Uncle Ruckus from this side of Omarosa with a little bit of Candace Wright, with a little bit of bed winching. Let's just call it what it is. Closest I'll get to calling her a B, but she's really a C. Candace Owens explains a short history of slavery at PragerU. Bear with me, it's just 5 minutes.
Here's the first thing you need to know. Slavery was not invented by white people. It did not start in 1619 when the first slaves came to Jamestown. It existed before then. It did not start in 1492 when Columbus discovered the New World. In fact, when the intrepid explorer landed in the Bahamas, the native Taino tribe hoped that he would help them defeat their aggressive neighbors, the Caribs. The Caribs enslaved the Taino and, on occasion, served them for dinner. Slavery existed in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. The word slave actually comes from the Slavs of Eastern Europe. Millions of them, all white by the way, were captured and enslaved by Muslims in the 9th century and later by the Ottoman Turks. Slavery existed when the Roman Empire controlled the Mediterranean and most of Europe from the 1st through the 5th centuries. Slavery existed when Alexander the Great conquered Persia in the 4th century BC. It was so common that Aristotle simply considered it natural. The slave master model was just how the world operated in the great philosopher's day. Slavery existed during the time of the ancient Egyptians 5,000 years ago. As far back as we can go in human history, we find slavery. As renowned historian John Steele Gordon notes from time immemorial, slaves were a major item of commerce. As much as a third of the population of the ancient world was enslaved. Here's the second thing you need to know. White people were the first to formally put an end to slavery. In 1833, Britain was the first country in the history of the world to pass a Slavery Abolition Act. They were quickly followed by France, who in 1848 abolished slavery in her many colonies. Then, of course, came the 13th Amendment in the United States Constitution. After centuries of human slavery, white men led the world in putting an end to the abhorrent practice. That includes the 300,000 Union soldiers, overwhelmingly white, who died during the Civil War. Now, am I saying that this makes white people better than anyone else? Of course not. My purpose here is to simply tell the truth, and the truth is that human history is complicated. No one, regardless of skin color, stands guiltless. Yet today we are never told to consider the murderous Persian Empire or the cannibalism of indigenous tribes of North and South America or the heinous actions under the imperialistic Muslim, Chinese, Mongol, or Japanese empires, to name just a few. Instead, we're told that slavery is a white phenomenon. And like all persistent lies, this lie spawns a bunch of other lies. On social media, I come across extraordinary depictions about how Africans lived like pharaohs before Europeans came and laid waste to their paradise. I wish any of this were true, but it's not. It's a fantasy. The truth is that Africans were sold into slavery by other Black Africans, and in many cases, sold for items as trivial as gin and mirrors. Whites didn't go into the interior and round up the natives. They waited on the coast for their Black partners to bring them Black bodies. The stark reality is that our lives had very little value to our ancestors. Here's the third thing you need to know. If you think slavery is a relic of the past, you're wrong. There are some 700,000 slaves in Africa today, right now. That's the lowest estimate that I could find. Other sources say there are many more. For context, that's almost twice as many slaves as were ever brought to the United States. Child soldiers, human trafficking, forced labor, these are the conditions that currently exist within the same sub-Saharan region where the transatlantic slave trade originated. African bodies are being sold today like they were sold then, and no, they are not being purchased by any country of white men. In fact, slavery, by any traditional definition, is exclusively practiced today within non-white countries. But we hear almost nothing about that. Just like we hear nothing about how slavery was universal until good people in Europe and America ended it 2 centuries ago. Why? Because our so-called leaders, Black and white, wouldn't profit from it. Black victimhood is nothing if not profitable. It elects politicians and funds racial grievance groups. And if Black Americans began to view themselves as partners in the American dream, if we embraced the patriotic spirit that holds all men are created equal, the patriotic spirit that is our real heritage, then the race hustlers would soon be out of business. And who wants that? I'm Candace Owens, author of Blackout for Prager University.
All right. Thank y'all. Thank y'all for hanging in there. I know it's Candace Owens. I know it's a load, and puppet. It's a load of bullshit. It's a load of bullshit. It is. What is this source? Trust me, bro. Yeah, I love how she sits there and says, white people are not to blame for slavery, but white people white people should be given credit for ending slavery, but also at the same time, white people are continuing slavery, but we're not going to say it's black people, just non-white countries. This is the scary part. That PragerU, unfortunately, is available on YouTube. Unfortunately, has a little over 3 million subscribers. Unfortunately, folks in education, and I said before, private and private religious schools, even some here in Nashville, are using that to teach. You want to know indoctrination? That's indoctrination. Because all that is literally someone going, well, they don't, white people don't feel bad, because that's all it is. PragerU is white people don't feel bad, because we're going to rewrite history. Because I don't know what it is. Only America wants to go back, look at its history like it's Windex, and wipe it all away. Let's wipe away the genocide. Let's wipe away the Trail of Tears. Let's wipe away Bloody Sunday. Let's wipe away the Freedom Riders. Let's wipe away the Black Panthers. Let's wipe away eminent domain. Let's wipe away everything. Let's wipe away internment camps. Because we didn't have them. The thing is, the reason why, and again, I love how Candace Owens, again, the C word that she is, I love the fact that she glosses all everything. She glosses that. This is what PragerU does. And that's the reason why I have a problem with it. It's not true education. It is literally white people safe indoctrination that they could sit there and say, well, if a black person speaks about it, it must be fine. No. The history is supposed to be fun, but it also must be honest. It must be brutal in every sense of the word, because it's a history. America has a bloody ass history. Accept it. Because Thanksgiving was honestly started on a lie. How Halloween and how Christmas and all those things started, be honest about those things. They're not all religious based. Well, to a certain extent, because it involves paganism, but that's a whole other story. The thing is, America has a history. America has a history, and it's too busy trying to blue sky it like our previous generations didn't have these problems. They did. And yes, most of it was by white folks. But they don't want to admit that. But here's another crazy thing about PragerU. It's not just doing education like that. It's also going to do the news. Similar to NPR, except screw journalism. We're basically going to take Fox News and copy it, which is exactly what they did. Just show you a few minutes of it.
Is placed under house arrest for allegedly staging a coup. ICE uses a Trojan horse to catch illegal immigrants in LA. NASA is fast-tracking a mission to put a nuclear reactor on the moon, and the suspected shooter at Georgia's Fort Stewart has been identified, but corporate news outlets aren't showing his picture. We'll get into all that in your quick hits right now. What's up, guys? Welcome to the wrap-up, where we break down the biggest stories of the week that you might have missed but need to know. I'm your host, Haika. Brazil has placed former President Jair Bolsonaro under house arrest on Monday, pending his trial for allegedly attempting to stage a coup following his election loss back in 2022. According to the Associated Press, Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes ordered Bolsonaro to remain in his residence in Brasilia, Brazil, and prosecutors also seized the former president's cell phones. However, on July 30th, the State Department sanctioned Justice Moraes for arbitrary detention involving flagrant denials of fair trial guarantees and violations of the freedom of expression. The Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs posted on X, quote, putting even more restrictions on Jair Bolsonaro's ability to defend himself in public is not a public service. let Bolsonaro speak. Prosecutors have accused Bolsonaro of leading a criminal enterprise to overturn the 2022 election results and of plotting to assassinate his left-wing opponent, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Lula's victory was extremely controversial, as the UN Rights Committee had found him guilty of election corruption. While the duration of the house arrest is still unknown, Bolsonaro remains barred from running in the upcoming 2026 election. U.S. Border Patrol enforcement agents resumed immigration sweeps in Los Angeles on Wednesday, but with a bit of a twist. They opted for a large Penske rental truck to bring agents to the parking lot of a Home Depot to go after illegal aliens in the area. According to the Los Angeles Times, a man drove a Penske rental truck near a group of day laborers outside the store and asked if anyone was looking for work. As they moved closer to the truck, enforcement agents jumped out of the back. 16 arrests were made immediately, while others ran away. But Penske didn't seem too pleased that their trucks were used in the operation. Spokesman Randolph Ryerson said, quote, "The company was not made aware that its trucks would be used in today's operation and did not authorize this." Penske posted shortly after the sweep that it would be in touch with the Department of Homeland Security about the, quote, "improper use of its vehicles in the future." But the Department of Homeland Security got the last word, responding to Penske with a media report of 58 illegal aliens being smuggled inside a Penske truck, which garnered zero response from the company. DHS wrote, quote, "Silence speaks volumes." NASA is fast-tracking a plan to construct a small nuclear reactor on the moon, aiming to win a space race against China and Russia. According to the Daily Wire, the space agency believes that by 2030, it will be able to send a nuclear reactor to the surface of the moon. The nuclear reactor would provide power for the Artemis campaign, which focuses on exploring the moon's surface, learning how to live on other worlds, and preparing for human missions to Mars. Transportation Secretary and Acting Administrator of NASA, Sean Duffy, said in a press conference, quote, "We're in a race to the moon, in a race with China to the moon. And to have a base on the moon, we need energy. The lunar reactor."
So I'm just going to stop it right there because it's literally a load of bullshit. I apologize. I'm trying not to really cuss as much, but that's their news. NPR was non-biased, report the facts as they are, and can cite with sources. PragerU is Fox News with a different name. Their news, the wrap-up, is a different name. And again, guys, I point this out. I only point this out because that's Taco's replacement for PBS. PragerU, indoctrinating kids and making white people feel good since its inception. At the same time, you have their news sites like the Wrap Up that are basically Fox News on 30-second intervals because they understand the attention spans of their audience. And you shouldn't be surprised. But moving right along, I wanted to cover this as well from Brian Tyler Cohen because there are two things that we should be paying attention to from the Supreme Court. I'll start with this one because they are attempting to take, again, parts of the Voting Rights Act and why you should be paying attention.
Over the last few years.
That's absolutely right, which again is why I need people to watch this video all the way to the end and get all of this information, and also why it's important that you share this information with your friends. This Supreme Court case has the potential to undo Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. We all know about Shelby County. We all know that the Supreme Court in 2013 undid and gutted Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. That provision said that if you were in a jurisdiction in a state with a history of discriminating against minority voters, before you could change your voting rules, you had to get pre-clearance from the Department of Justice or a court in Washington, D.C. The thing that is oftentimes not as focused on is the remaining key provision of the Voting Rights Act, Section 2. What does that do? That applies nationwide. And it says that if you engage in voting discrimination against minority voters, those laws, those actions can be undone. And it has become the central tool that is used to prevent Republican gerrymandering, to screw over and discriminate against minority voters. If this goes away, then states like Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, Texas, they will be able to enact new maps that just run roughshod over minority voters in ways that are unimaginable to us today. So everybody needs to be paying attention to this case. Everybody needs to be following it on Democracy Doc, the website I created, and everybody needs to be watching these videos and really educating themselves and their friends.
So this case is going to be heard on October 15th. Does that offer any insight? Can you read anything from the tea leaves here in terms of what that means for the Supreme Court? Is that early? Is that late? Is that completely normal and doesn't give any insight at all into how the Supreme Court might look at this?
Look, it doesn't tell us what the outcome will be, and no one can go all like the courts don't matter and it's all rigged business on me. Okay, like we got to fight till the bitter end. We got to expect the Supreme Court's going to do the right thing. We've got to have trust in the lawyers who are arguing this case. My law firm has been involved in representing one of the groups of Black voters who brought the original case in Louisiana. So no giving up on me here, right? Okay, so everyone's got to stick with us. But what it means is that the Supreme Court term, which doesn't begin until the beginning of October, this case has been put at the very beginning. Like this case could have been scheduled in October, could have been scheduled in November, December, or even January. The Supreme Court is having this be one of the very first cases that it hears this term. And one of the reasons that may be is because they want a decision to be able to be issued early in the term, early in 2026, because there will be midterm elections. And if they were to strike down the Voting Rights Act, you could see Republican states all across the Deep South and potentially elsewhere decide to redraw their maps and draw out of existence existing Black and Hispanic opportunity districts that right now, if they tried to do, would violate the Voting Rights Act. Again, not a prediction. I believe that we have to win this case and that we will win this case. We have won previous cases before. We won the Alabama case a couple of years ago, which was the last time that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act was in danger. So again, no giving up on it, everybody. You cannot get fatalistic here. We have to hold the Supreme Court to the law, to its precedent, and to what Congress intended when they enacted this.
Mark, does the fact that this Supreme Court has upheld Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act numerous times in numerous states, including Louisiana, including Florida, including Alabama, does that offer any insight into whether or not they would be more or less willing to uphold Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act when that issue as a standalone issue comes in front of the court?
Look, the fact is this has come up before the court, as you point out. Like you listed some of the states that the current composition of the Supreme Court has decided. But honestly, the amendments to Section 2 that sort of have set the basic framework that we all operate under were put in place in 1982 under Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
And conservative Supreme Courts ever since, and yes, we have had conservative Supreme Courts ever since, they have all, in one form or another, reaffirmed Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, applied Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, struck down actions that violate Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. I mean, this is as close as you get to well-settled law that has not just existed, but has been over and over and over again applied to a variety of districting and district maps over the course of decades. And for the U.S. Supreme Court to decide now, somehow, that, you know, it no longer is necessary because times have changed, you know, there's no longer a need for it, or whatever excuse they would have, is simply inexcusable. And we cannot allow that to happen. We cannot give in to that as an inevitability. We have to hold the Supreme Court to those precedent and assume that in the end, they will, as they did in Alabama, they will do the right thing and Section 2 will survive.
And that's the thing that also needs to be apparent, very, very, very apparent, because we talked about this last week. Remember the redistricting in Texas that you're trying to do? The fact that they can't, Texas Republicans want to redraw the district maps because they got their marching orders from Taco. Taco needs a 5 additional Republican seats to hold a supermajority there in Texas. And the fact that Texas Democrats said deuces, because they know that without them, they cannot break the quorum. And why Governor Wheels Abbott is doing everything he can to try to make them come back. Well, it's that simple, folks. Republicans realize they fucked up. The midterms are next year. Republicans know the only seat that is safe next year, unfortunately, is Tacos. And JD Vance. We know whenever he gets back from our vacation from him doing practically nothing as the vice president. But the Senate and the House, those seats are up for grabs. Republicans are nervous because they pushed this big, beautiful BS of a bill, and people don't like it. People don't like Taco and his immigration policies right now. People don't like paying more in grocery stores or at the pump or for just things in general. People don't like watching their 401k shrink while rich people are literally bringing in record profits in a post-pandemic era. It's not looking too good for Republicans. So they know there is a chance that they may actually lose the House and the Senate next year. And if it is, as some predicted, if the Democrats ever get their shit together, is a completely blue House and a completely blue Senate, that means Taco's going to have a whole lot of problems on his hands. His veto auto draft pen may get used, but at the same time, if the Democrats not only get their shit together, have an agenda together, move aside the moderates and push forward the progressives, and get overwhelming majorities in the House and the Senate, there's a lot of stuff you can do in 2 years and make the last 2 years of Taco's presidency problematic. But that's the fear. So what are Republicans going to do? Oh, we're gonna push the goalposts. We're gonna change the rules. We're gonna redistrict. We're gonna do this. We're gonna go to every spot that we have a foothold in and make it a majority. Because that's what Texas is trying to do. California, again, the governor, Governor Gavin himself has already sat there and said, if you guys try to pull what you do in Texas, we'll do it here in California. The governor of Illinois has turned around and sat there and said, we'll do the same thing here. So here's the thing, and I'm just going to point this out. Even if Texas decides to go a supermajority of conservatives, California, Illinois, New York, all those areas where there's a massive influx of electoral college votes, if you want to see them go completely Democrat, that could pretty much be your presidency right there. Again, redistricting, guys. Gerrymandering is not a new thing. It's supposed to happen every couple of years as the population grows to account for everybody to be counted and represented well. The fact that Republicans are seeing the writing on the wall, and so is Taco, means they're panicking. That's why this case with the Supreme Court is monumental, because they're trying to dissect the Voting Rights Act in the same sense they dissected the college acceptance from the college acceptance from the actual other act. They literally and figuratively sat there and said affirmative action. Oh, let's remove the college acceptance from that. And everybody didn't think that would affect them. But not forgetting that within that college acceptance of affirmative action, there's a little thing called DEI, to which Fox News and every conservative person, I know it's not the word I want to say, every conservative person with a podcast or a following all trounced DEI, saying it was a new CRT, that we didn't want this. So what happened? The positions got removed. People who were considered DEI hires lost their jobs. So you had corporations like Target and Walmart removing DEI programs, things of that nature. And again, nobody didn't think removing one thing would lead to a cascade of others. The same thing can happen for the Voting Rights Act. That if this one section is removed, do not think for 1 second an avalanche of consequences will not follow, because it will. The other case, which I hate to say it, because I called this, and I'm not the only one that said this, I called this a long time ago. What would happen if Roe versus Wade got overturned? That every other landmark case out there would be now up for grabs. Same-sex marriages, you're up.
In favor of same-sex marriage across the United States, it could now be overturned. Senior Washington correspondent Devin Dwyer is on the story for us. All right, give us the deal, Devin. Who is actually asking the justices to overturn this?
Well, in recent years, Kira, we've been waiting for a case like this as some of the sentiment in the country has started to shift a little bit, softened rather, against same-sex marriage. There's been a lot of talk about whether the justices will get a chance to reconsider the case. And as you said there, they are getting that opportunity next month. We've learned that Kim Davis, she's that Kentucky clerk from back in 2015 that was at the center of international controversy when she refused to issue marriage licenses to a gay couple in Kentucky in defiance of the Supreme Court. She spent 6 days in jail. She lost a defamation suit. She had to pay $100,000 in damages, $260,000 in legal fees. That's what she's appealing to the Supreme Court. But it's the first time, Kira, that anyone has technically asked the justices explicitly to overturn Obergefell v. Hodges, which was that landmark ruling. And she does just that. Her counsel in this petition, which was filed last week, says that decision was egregiously wrong. And if that sounds familiar, that's the same type of argument that was made by opponents of abortion when they sought to overturn Roe versus Wade just a few years ago. So a lot of eyes on this petition. It's unclear whether the court will take it up, but certainly a lot on the line.
And that's the truth. And again, I know a lot of people are sitting there saying, but Will, there's no way this could happen. We said the same thing about Roe versus Wade. We said the same thing about abortion being legal as Roe versus Wade was the law of the land, that the Supreme Court had ruled that abortion should be legal and that women should have rights over their bodies, and those who are pro-birth and pro-life are full of shit. I'm paraphrasing the last part. We said that's how it should happen. But what happened? We found out because someone leaked one of the justices' early rulings. We found out that they were going to overturn Roe versus Wade. And that when they finally did meet, of course, all conservative judges lined up and said, we overturn it. All liberal and progressive said, no, the court is conservative leaning. It's been knocked down. What happened since Roe versus Wade got knocked down? A whole bunch of states already had trigger laws into effect. Some even making abortions downright forbidden. Some a felony. Some come with murder charges. Professionals, providers being charged with attempted murder if they do assist in abortions. That was, again, we just got through saying what happens when you strike down or overrule a Supreme Court decision. What happens? That happens. And now with Obergefell, that case, again, involving same-sex marriages, I mean, we could play devil's advocate. Let's say that conservatives do what conservatives do and overturn things to basically appease a handful of people and piss off millions. Same-sex marriage is now not a legal recognized marriage in the United States. What happens? Insurance companies turn around there and say, well, your spouse is not covered because we do not recognize same-sex marriages. Not only insurance, not only financials, things of that nature, everything that was tied to that ruling could now be thrown out the door. And you'll have religious nuts in there saying, well, that just means that God is taking over. No, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Now, could conservatives not and, let it stand? Maybe. But like I said, we said the same thing about Roe versus Wade, and they overturned it. Do you really want to see what happens when they overturn same-sex marriages? Because I feel for those who fall into that, who all they wanted was to marry their partner. All they wanted was to get insurance coverage. All they wanted was to be able to be bonded to them as far as financials, beneficiaries, things of that nature. That's all they wanted, to be able to live like a regular couple as the straight ones do. And as a straight heterosexual male, I support same-sex marriages because they simply want to be able to be together in the same sense that a straight couple is. And it's not my business what they do with it. If they want to be happy and they make each other happy, I'm not standing in the way of somebody's happiness because I'm not a dick. However, some conservatives and pro-life and religious people are in that sense. But we'll follow that story as it comes along. Another story which I'm going to get to, which again, guys, see, this is the part that always annoys me, because whenever I see a story like this, I always want to turn around and say, remember that fear a long time ago because a drag queen was reading to your kids that you swore up and down it would turn them? But yet, whenever it comes to a man of the cloth getting caught, silence.
Denies the allegations and is anxiously waiting his day in court to prove his innocence.
A youth pastor who used his position of power to prey on children. That's how 52-year-old Thomas Pinkerton is described in court Thursday. He's facing 24 counts related to child sexual abuse offenses. So far, 7 men have come forward, 6 of which say the abuse took place in Baltimore County from 2006 to 2010 while he was a youth pastor at Central Christian Church, taking place at both the church and his home. The survivors were 12 to 17 years old at the time. Thursday, Pinkerton went before a judge for his bail review hearing after being extradited from his home in Georgia to here in Maryland. The judge deciding that he will continue to be held behind bars with no bond, determining that he is both a flight risk and a danger to public safety. That decision stems from new charging documents, where survivors detail a pattern of behavior with those Pinkerton deemed his favorites, including massages, hand-holding, hugging, wrestling, and kissing, before some describe it as escalating into sexual molestation. They say he would groom them, fostering a spiritual father-son relationship with young men, telling them, quote, that this was between them, not to tell anyone, and that it could destroy Pinkerton. Survivors say he would have boys sleep with him on mission trips, other times making children strip down as a gesture of, quote, serving. One victim says, quote, the kisses made him feel uncomfortable and sick. The abuse allegedly continued until Pinkerton left to begin his own ministry. Right now, another investigation is underway in Georgia for similar accusations.
He's been in Georgia. He has a family in Georgia, a wife and 3 children. He's actually a member of pastor of a church down in Georgia.
Pinkerton's attorney tells 11 News he is no longer with that church. In a statement, Central Christian calls the news, quote, deeply heartbreaking, stating the church is fully cooperating with the investigation. A preliminary hearing is set for September. In Baltimore County.
So I'll say it once, and I'll say it again. It's amazing that of all these stories, I've never heard of a drag queen being caught with a child in a manner that is outside of education. Oh, but drag queen, oh, they might get turned. A drag queen weaning to your child, they might turn them to the LGBTQ plus community. Oh, tragic. And yet not one story. Not one story of a drag queen doing what a supposed man of God does. Not one. And again, point the shit out. I will sit here all day and go story for story. I can show you Republicans, whether it's senators or representatives, caught with certain items that would be on this side of a Law and Order episode. Men, supposedly religious men, religious leaders in the church, caught with children in a manner that, again, would be on a Law and Order episode. But you know what you never see in these stories? Drag queens. I have yet to see a drag queen be literally in the same sentence as harming a child. And yet, when we dropped that story not so long ago, oh, well, I just don't feel comfortable with a drag queen reading to my child. Some of y'all take your children to Predators every Sunday and don't even freaking know it. But I digress. But again, we'll follow that story because, as it always has been, follow the money. Always, above all else. But also, you cannot always assume because they're a man of God or religious or spiritual that you don't think for 1 second they ain't nothing but a predator in sheep's clothing. And I guarantee some people at the church knew it. But a couple more story, guys, before we get to our feel-good segment. I keep saying this all the time because if you guys are in the job market and you're trying to find jobs that AI is a problem, well, because companies are using AI a little too freaking much.
That brings us to this week's edition of a segment we call In This Economy. How about this one? Artificial intelligence is having a major impact on the job market, specifically upending entry-level roles for recent college grads. Analysts tell ABC News AI could replace or reorient entry-level jobs with computer-based work more vulnerable than manual labor. Laura Ulrich joins me now for more. She's the Economic Research Director at Indeed. Laura, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so there are recent grads who are tuning in. They're watching us right now, and they are worried, all right? So I got to know, what are your top 5 tips for new grads dealing with this complicated job market?
Yeah, Ike, so great to be here. And I have to tell you, I've thought so much about this, not only because I'm an economist that spends a lot of time thinking about labor, but also because I'm actually the mother of a 2025 college grad. So I've been living through some of this on a personal level too. You know, my top tip would be that you got to start somewhere. Make sure to cast a wide net. You don't have to go into a job that's exactly the major that you planned on. And if you need new skills, go out and get them. Secondly, I would say build experience from where you are. So that means you could do internships, part-time work. Companies are often interested in not just what jobs you've had or what major you had, but the other activities you've participated in. Also hone your network. You know, you never know. You go out and have a cup of coffee tomorrow. That could be a job offer down the line. So take the connections that you have and build upon those. Another thing I'd love to point out is that the skills you've learned in college aren't just about your major. So some of those skills like critical thinking and problem solving apply across a really wide range of jobs. And those skills are not likely to be taken over by AI. So make sure to highlight those soft skills. And then lastly, you know, use the job platforms and other technologies that are available out there. Indeed's a great place where you can go to help surface roles, review resume, and try to find the perfect spot for you to start right off school.
So here's why I stop it. Because, yeah, you could do those things. But at the same time, why are we not addressing the elephant in the room? Companies are using AI. Now, as a tech person, I hate AI. I do. Not because I think that AI will eventually get sentient and actually take over and enslave the human race like Skynet. I am saying that companies using AI are going to replace jobs. I said it a long time ago, and I stand here vindicated. Why? Because companies are trying to cut corners. They're trying to save money everywhere, but still trying to pad profits. If you have an AI program that can literally do the job of 10 people, would you hire 10 people? Would you buy the AI program? A lot of companies will buy the AI program. At the same time, look at the companies, they're saying, well, we're saving so much money and not having to train individuals. We're saving so much money and not having to hire base level, that the fact of employee retention costs and leaving costs, we don't have to worry about those things now. That is a temporary measure. Why? Because again, for the job market, for people going into college, as some new students do start college if they haven't already. Whereas kids who have graduated, college students who have graduated, trying to find jobs may find it difficult right now. Even in the field of IT, where IT has a massive need for a lot of positions filled, but yet companies using AI to sort out resumes, using AI to do certain positions, I think that is a bubble that will eventually burst, because eventually you are going to need to have human eyes on it. Now, she is right. You know, you could do some things to alleviate that. But again, we're not addressing the elephant in the room. The overuse of AI is going to lead to a lack of good jobs. And therefore, you're going to have a good size amount of a workforce without a job. But again, there's always trades, there's always this, but it is kind of disheartening to basically go through education, be certified in what you do, only to find out that the area that you want to go into doesn't have a lot of openings. But for all those graduates, please keep your head up. Please keep digging. And again, it's my hope that things do turn around. But at the same time, I kind of hope AI dies too, but that's not happening anytime soon. But before I get to the main part of what I want to talk about today, we can say that Trump now finally found his stooge for the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
To tell you about. The president announced a little bit ago that he's going to nominate economist E.J. Antony from the Heritage Foundation to lead the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, this comes after Donald Trump fired the last BLS commissioner earlier this month after the latest data showed that the job growth had been a lot weaker than previously reported. Trump claimed those numbers were, quote, rigged, but offered no proof to back that up. If Antony does indeed get the job, he'll have to be confirmed by the Senate.
So, ladies and gentlemen, again, this is the scary part. What the scary part is about that individual, he comes from the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation, which again is a PAC that did fund Trump during his run. And that person they pointed out is a known tinfoil hat conspiracist. And all I can sit there and say about this situation is that the former head of the BLS, all she did was present the numbers. Numbers don't lie. And the BLS does not have a partisan, does not have a party to be loyal to. It serves Congress. And the only thing that they did was serve Taco the truth. Taco didn't like it, swore it was being used against him. And like every other senile and every other senile napkin that think the world is out to get him, thinks that she's there to derail him. So what did he do? He fired her and now brought on a loyalist. Because again, Taco has learned. Taco has learned, and I said this before, if you gave Taco another chance, he's going to learn from his mistakes and bring in people who are loyal to him. And now the Bureau of Labor Statistics is now compromised because trust and believe that stooge is going to say everything that Taco wants to hear. And that is corruption 101, folks. But the last story I'm going to get to, guys, before I get to my feel-good segment, it is for my home state of Tennessee. Yes, I have sat there and said that Tennessee is progressively backwards. I have sat there and said that these people will vote against their own interests and yet vote conservative every year because they believe the amount of bullshit these people do be telling them. I have sat there and said that the Tennessee State Legislature, because Speaker of the House Sexton, who is a douche, has went more of his way to welcome rich people and billionaires and corporations and give Tennessee tax dollars and get nothing back in return except kickbacks. I have said multiple things about this state and its people and its constituents. And I keep saying, this is the one time I really, really, really want you to hear me. Marsha Blackburn has now put her name in the ring to run for governor. Let's play her ad first before I explain the many reasons why this bitch should not be elected.
I'm Marsha Blackburn. Here in the volunteer state, we always lead the way. And that's why I am announcing my candidacy for governor. I love Tennessee. I believe in Tennesseans. And I'm ready to deliver the kind of conservative leadership that will ensure our state is America's conservative leader for this generation and the next.
And I just realized I was muted. So I thank God I didn't catch that part. But let me say this again. For all those that are wondering, hell no to Blackburn. Hell no. I cannot stress that enough. Hell no. That also being said, because she has done nothing for the state, I want to point out some things, some issue positions, because I do believe in forming people. I fully believe in that. But this is being taken directly from Vote Smart, to which they have tried their best to get positions from the candidates on. And I want to point this out about Marsha Blackburn for all those that don't know. This is her positions, and I mean this. These are all the positions that she stands on. Do you support the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade? Yes. Roe versus Wade was quote unquote an awful act of judicial activism that legitimized the killings of millions of unborn children. That was a quote directly from her. National Rights Life Community and Campaign Working for Families both voted for her. On the subject of budget spending and taxes, do you support expanding federal funding to support social safety net programs such as Social Security and Medicare? Unknown. She has sat there and said, quote unquote, Biden has repeatedly lied, saying Republicans want to cut Medicare. Oh, how we found out that was true. Another one, do you support a decrease in income taxes in order to balance the budget? Yes. Let me try this again. Do you support a decrease in income taxes in order to balance the budget? She says yes. In the Tennessee State Senate, she led the fight against the state income tax because we almost did get one, which again was shot down. She voted for President Trump's tax reform package, you know, the one that we're now seeing the permanent effects of, or we'll see it soon. She fights an effort to raise taxes and committed to making our tax code simple. She's done nothing of the sort. But that's the quote that she does, which I love that they always say, we must cut spending and lower taxes, to where, again, she voted in favor of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017. For all those that don't know, that was Trump's tax cuts. Do you support a wealth tax in order to pay for public programs? No. In Tennessee, we know better than to raise new taxes that run people out of our state. When will Democrats learn to leave our constituents alone? Meanwhile, everybody's moving to Nashville because of that, bringing their salaries along with it. Kind of contradictory. The Democrats are doing everything in our power to raise taxes on hardworking, tax-paying Americans in the Senate. No, that's Republicans. Again, a quote by her. Do you support the regulations of indirect campaign contributions from corporations, unions, and individuals? No. So let me get this straight. She loves Citizens United. She doesn't want to end it, which again, much money into politics. Anybody with a checkbook can get in. Do you support protecting government officials, including law enforcement officers, from personal liability and civil lawsuits concerning alleged misconduct? Unknown position. Yet she was the one talking about we stand by our boys in blue when every time there was a shooting involving a black man. Defense. Do you support increasing defense spending? Yes, because she talks about communist China's nuclear-capable hypersonic missile test was just another step to achieving its goal of global domination. Yet the Biden administration decreased our defense budget. Ma'am, you are a senator in Tennessee. Why the frack do you care about China? Just pointing that out. Economy. Do you support federal spending as a means of promoting economic growth? No. She still wants to cut spending. From where? Considering the fact that she has raised taxes in Tennessee and voted for it. Let's do another one. Do you support the federal government increasing funding for affordable housing programs? Amazing how silent she is about that, yet voted for HR 5735 to Thrive back in 2018, which again did actually take away from housing programs. I'm just pointing this out. Do you support the federal government? Do you support the federal government taking action beyond those of the Federal Reserve to alleviate inflation? No. And yet she's doing the opposite right now. Do you support the forgiveness of federal student loan debt? No. Again, she's made millions off endorsements and PACs. Yet her own constituents have millions of dollars in student loan debt that she doesn't believe needs to be forgiven, but gives tax breaks to businesses. Do you support requiring a government-issued identification in order to vote at polls? Yes, it's already in place. And yet they have this scary thing that illegal immigrants can vote. Illegal immigrants cannot vote. But that was a lie she was touting because Taco told her to. Do you support government funding for the development of renewable energy? Example, solar, wind, or geothermal? No, because she wants to lift the leases, open the Keystone Pipeline, and begin drilling. Because, shocker, she's supported by oil companies. Of course she wants to open up the Keystone Pipeline at the time. Of course they wanted to drill in wildlife reserves in the Arctic. Because, again, the oil companies want to keep on drilling and fracking and coal mining and saying F climate change. Do you support the federal government allowing permits for drilling on public lands? Goes right back up to the other one. Yes, she does. Do you support gun control legislation, red flag laws, boyfriend loopholes? No, because she believes in the Second Amendment like it's the Bible. Healthcare. Do you support a government-run single-payer healthcare program, such as Medicaid for all? No, because, again, she touts the Republican talking points. 153 million Americans will get kicked off the health insurance under the leftist Medicare for All plan, not realizing that double that amount is going to get kicked off of Trump's big beautiful bill. So it is amazing to me, guys. And again, I can keep going down the line. There are so many of these, but for the sake of time, I only wanted to go after a few of them. But if you yourself want to check that out, that is literally at votesmart.com. Votesmart.org. Look up Marsha Blackburn. You will not be freaking surprised. And I say this to all of my Tennesseans out there. I say this to you all. We have got to make sure that Marsha Blackburn does not become governor. She is basically a taco cheerleader who is a mouthpiece. She's basically what Pam Bondi would be if Pam Bondi was a senator that wants to be a governor. She has no plan. She has no basis. Whatever Taco wants her to do, she will roll over and do with a smile on her face. There are plenty of other candidates out there for Tennessee. I will actually go into a deep dive on each of those on the next podcast. But I have to say this because this is paramount. Marsha Blackburn cannot be freaking governor of the state of Tennessee. So, with that being said, we're going to move on to our feel good segment, guys. Usually, on How the Frack Got Here, we usually cover a lot of things, our doom and gloom, make you lose your faith in humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday, tomorrow's Thursday. We will leave you guys out with some good vibes, and hopefully, the next story will do that about an NBA player that has a second dream of wanting to be an educator.
For most basketball players, making it to the NBA is the ultimate dream. But Brooklyn Nets star Mikal Bridges had another dream as well.
My other dream was being a second grade teacher. I think just helping kids has always been a big thing of mine.
Why second grade?
Because I loved second grade when I was young. I feel like that was one of the years I really remember, and just having a great year at a great teacher named Miss Porter. And I just feel like I always loved second grade.
Miss Porter inspired Mikal to follow that dream, and he got to do that this March at PS 134 in Brooklyn, where he got to work as a teacher for a day.
You guys ready for number 2?
The Nets got in around 1:30 a.m. the night before after beating the Cleveland Cavaliers 120-101. The player had a long night, but he was committed to teaching those kids.
You passed. And their energy kind of just was like, what got me going so fast. Like, they just was excited, and they were teaching me on a little xylophone. I don't know what I was doing with the little, what the teacher was teaching. And kids next to me was like pointing at the board, like, follow that. I'm like, oh, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So thanks, guys. Woo!
He also went to recess and lunch, and he taught his favorite class, math, where perhaps his inclination for teaching others began.
Math came easy to me. I feel like I was probably one of the smartest math kids in our class. So I was never like, somebody get it wrong and I'm like, oh, you don't know math, but like I'll try to teach them, but this is how I learned it, and it's pretty simple to me this way. Just think it this way, you know?
Mikal practices free throw shots on Monday. He gets 25 free throw shots. He practices on Tuesday and gets 10 more free throw shots. How many free throw shots did he get on Tuesday?
The kids couldn't get enough of their temporary teacher, Mr. Bridges.
Can I hug you? Yeah, you want a hug? What's up, my guy? You want a hug?
While meeting an NBA star is a kid's dream, meeting these kids fulfilled a dream for him.
You know, a lot of days we're in school, you know, and we're with our teachers, and I think they just don't get enough credit, you know, because we're around them a lot, you know what I'm saying? And they help us, you know, become better people every day. And I think something we just overlook a little bit.
This Nets player's first day as a teacher, nothing but net. Caitlin O'Kane, CBS News.
Sorry. And again, kid, you gotta love those kind of stories. And I always, like myself, I have a special place in my heart for teachers and educators. I don't, you know, obviously you guys don't get paid enough for what you do. You don't get the funding that you should do. I mean, honestly, for really being honest, Department of Education should get a blank check and also not have Linda McMahon. But again, try to be positive. This is supposed to be a positive story. Shout out to teachers and educators, because again, without you guys, there would not be people like myself and of course, the esteemed gentleman we just showed there. So that being said, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast. Thank you all for liking, for watching. I know we went a little bit long this time, but thank you for keeping up. Thank you for sticking with me. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here, guys. Shout out to Always Press Record TV at APR TV. Why? Because How the Frack show's on there. You can catch us on the Roku channel or Amazon Fire TV app, as well as other shows that are available on APR TV. Definitely check that out, as it can be seen on all smart devices. Also, BlurStation.com. I have talked about this for almost going on 2 years now. It is a streaming service that has entertainment, that has television, that has shows, unique shows that will be coming out, and more will be coming along with it soon. Definitely check it out at BlurStation.com. It is $10.99 a month to stream Blur Station. If you hit the Join Now button, select the Blur's Eye View Affinity membership, select my name, Black Spartan, and again, Blur Station can be seen and streamed on all smart devices, but definitely check it out. Also, runforoffice.org. I have been saying this, guys. There are plenty of other sites out there that can show how you can get your name on ballots, how you can be elected, and what to do in order to actually get your name out there in hopes of running for office, whether you feel the need to run locally or nationally. Run for Office can definitely help you do that, guys. And I keep saying, if the crazy ones, if the tinfoil hats can do it, so can we. And in this day and age, guys, it is becoming ever so apparent that now we need more people in action. Now we need more people, not just for the federal offices, but for the locals, for the states. My home state, Tennessee, specifically Nashville, our legislation is so effing corrupted by Sexton and the other ones that I wish there were more people like Justin Pearson and Justin Jones and other ones that have come forward that, again, really can help turn the situation around in Tennessee. But again, not just Tennessee, other states as well. But if you feel the need, definitely check out runforoffice.org. As for the show, How the Frack We Got Here can be found on YouTube, on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all those good places. How the Frack, especially YouTube, How the Frack We Got Here all together. At the same time, myself, Black_Spartan615, I can be found on the socials as well. Like and follow me there. Just don't be weird. I don't want to have to get the whole blocking thing. And again, guys, we cannot do any of this without your support. So like, share, subscribe, tell people about it. I've had people walk up to me and say, hey, I watch your show. I appreciate it, but share it. We want to grow because the mission isn't to inform, it's to empower, it's to get people to act. Because again, we cannot sit on the sidelines. We've seen what happens when we sit on the sidelines, and it's not good. At the same time, you do not want Taco a third time. People are finding that out. And again, you all drag us around for the find out part. And again, the Republicans are panicking for the midterms. Democrats, time to pull your shit together and don't wait till next year to do something. That's all I'm saying. But the last thing I'll say about the Frack out here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind. But we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past, making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black woman, hopefully one day to finally be called Madam President. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up at our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians, but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Protect your peace, guys. Don't doom scroll. Go outside, enjoy nature. Hydrate. The sun is out there. Check on your people. Find happiness. Find peace. Keep your strength. Keep your head up. The fight's still going on. We can win this. Take care of yourselves and each other, guys. And I promise we'll get through this. Peace.